The show will start shortly, so while you wait, let's get to know your hosts. Kim and Carlos are a married couple, grew up in the same small town, and met because of sports. Here's a blast from the past of what we were like back then. Fun facts about Carlos: he was our high school basketball star, and he ran a leg of the Olympic torch run for the 1984 Olympics. I was a freshman when Carlos was a senior. He wrote these messages to me in our yearbook back in 1985. We decided to start our podcast in 2023. Our first season used this cover art. The first season was our memoir about getting your child through cancer. The name of our show has deep meaning for us because doctors would always blow us off with these two words, typical and unique. We made this montage part of our intro for a while.
Hit with so many typicallys and uniques.
Oh, yes, that is very typical. We see it all the time.
Don't worry about it. That's typical, you know.
Oh, every child is unique, so we can't say what is typical.
That's typical. See you later. You know.
Well, that's unique. We don't really see that very much.
Yeah, typical or unique.
Since then, we took a break from podcasting and came back with season 2 as a discussion podcast, mostly discussing true crime. We can talk about almost anything on here, though. And we thank you for joining us. Now, if you're ready, let's get into it. Welcome to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos.
Hello.
So we are live tonight with a special guest.
Live.
We're going to have Twiz come up on stage. And if you know our show, you know the episodes where we discuss the Idaho 4. We do not, Carlos and I, do not always see eye to eye.
No.
So we have some very good banter and discussions. And that kind of is a little unique to our channel. So, I've talked to many of you in chat, and Twiz I've talked to in chat, and he wants to come on and have a discussion and see if he can change Carlos's mind.
Yeah. So I guess maybe to set it up, continue to set it up. I think you did a really good job. I am a guilter. Right. I think Bryan Kohberger is guilty until shown or proven otherwise. And you're a pro-burger. So you have been commiserating with other pro-burgers online. And I think Twiz came up to you in the chat one day and said, hey, I think I can change Carlos over, because Kim, up until this point, we're probably 10 episodes into Idaho 4 and have not been able to change my mind. So she's bringing in the big guns to see if we can maybe change my mind. So
that's right.
Let's bring him up.
Calmly. Yep. Let's bring him up. Someone said filthy guilter.
I can take it.
I want to say hi to everybody in chat. Hi, Twiz.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Great. We're good.
Good. Very good.
Yep. It was sunny here today, so I was happy.
Yeah. You guys are in Colorado?
We're in Ohio.
Ohio. Oh, wow.
Yeah, right up on the lake. So get like 3 months of summer. That's it.
Lots of Ohioans.
There are. I know. I could probably drive to go visit Heather. I think, if I got
she
that
might
right.
come over and make sure Carlos has showered because she called him filthy.
I could take it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
Let's probably everybody knows who Twiz is, but let's maybe get to know a little bit more about him. You have some questions for him?
Yes. So I know that you're very interested in the Idaho 4 case, but do you follow other cases?
A little bit every now and then. It really just depends on if something perks my interest.
Yeah.
But I've watched a lot of old stuff. Like people want to be like, well, Bryan Kohberger studied serial killers. Well, I've studied serial killers, so if that's an indication of something, then don't search my Google history.
So you are a true crime buff.
I mean, I would have never called it that before the Kohberger case, but if I get interested in stuff, like I look at a lot.
Okay. And then, so with the Idaho 4 case, like, how did you get interested in that? I know you're spent some time in that area too, but
yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest thing was I lived in Pullman for 4 years previously. So it actually ended up kind of weird because I was just in a car accident in October right before the murders. And I was just thinking, like, I was living in Phoenix, and I was just kind of tired of the Phoenix area. So I was like, where am I going to move to? And I liked Pullman, but I hate Washington. So I was thinking about moving to Moscow, and then the murders happened. And like my first thought was like, I'll get cheap rent, because no one will want to live there.
Good point.
Yeah. And then the other thing that really stuck with me on this one is just how Bryan was treated right when he was arrested, because people were like calling him an incel and like all this crazy stuff. And I was like, you don't know the guy. How could you say that?
Right.
True. Yeah, interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us. So let's ask everyone in the chat, because the purpose tonight is to see if we can change Carlos's mind a little bit. So
let me state this first before you give the the poll that we want to run here real quick. So I like the fact that the community has this Kohberger moniker, right? That. So as a guilter, like, we have the worst title for the people who are on the side of guilty. So I would like to be converted to a Kohberger. So I'm open-minded to hear what everybody has to say. So but I need to be convinced. It has to pass my sensibilities for me to to fully believe that.
It's going to be an interesting discussion.
But we were kind of talking a little bit, and we want to do a little poll. Do we think that Twiz,
You've been reading too much chat, because people call me in the chat all the time.
Twiz can convince me to become a Kohberger?
Yes.
So if we believe that could happen, they should put a 1 in the chat.
1 if you think Twiz is going to do it.
2 if I will not be convinced enough to become a quote unquote Kohberger.
Yep.
All right. So that's some interactive play there with the chat. But
someone put 0.
Okay.
And 0 if
-88.
Yeah. That's great. So, and then we also want to maybe state how we got here, right?
How do we all feel?
Yeah. How do we all
what's
feel?
your stance?
Yeah.
And why is that your stance?
So Twiz is our guest.
Yep.
So we'll let him go first.
Sure.
Well,
So
I
what's
believe
your
in
stance on guilt or innocence?
innocent until proven guilty. So I have seen nothing that points to guilt, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I've seen a lot that points to not guilty.
I agree with you.
Well, then go ahead. That's a good segue.
Right. I'm also innocent until proven guilty. And for me, it's been a long road of that. Like, when they first arrested him, I thought, oh, wow, great, they got the guy. And then it's just been one thing after another for me that's been either they're fumbling something, or, but they haven't proven to me that he's the guy.
Yeah. And I am also innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So
doesn't sound like it.
My speculation, though, is that they got the right guy. And I think that's what I've been stating. Like, they haven't pulled me off of the person who has been arrested. And, I continue to try to make that point that I want him to have his day in court. And I want to see all the evidence, because, we've seen, a smidge of what's out there. I do believe, for the most part, in our judicial system. I do believe that, hopefully he'll have access, and it seems like he has access to good representation.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's been
Understatement.
Very.
speaking very highly of his
Oh, yeah.
representation.
She's a boss.
So very good that, at least we're starting some of this, kind of on a level playing field. But I haven't seen anything yet that says they don't have the right guy. And I've heard a lot of people speculate about other folks, and I haven't been able to take that other scenario and switch it out yet and say, they should arrest that person because of all the things that they've talked about. Let's insert them and take out Bryan Kohberger. Nobody has come close at this point to convince me of making that switch, because somebody has to pay for these crimes. Somebody did it, so somebody has to pay for this.
I know you have points, Twiz, of why he's innocent. Do you buy any of the other theories for other suspects?
I really don't, because we haven't seen all the evidence, especially like from in the house. But it just doesn't seem like Bryan was involved at all.
Okay. And in the chat, you can participate in that too if you want to put how you feel about guilt or innocence and why in the chat. Okay, so let's get into it. So, Twiz, do you want to what's the most important evidence that you think claims his innocence?
Cell towers, which will be a big surprise for people in the chat that know me.
Right.
Cell towers.
So can I ask questions?
Yeah.
Can we? Okay. So, so when you say cell towers, you're stating that cell tower information or cell tower data is going to prove his innocence. Is that the assumption I'm going to make with that statement?
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assumption.
And what would the cell towers data show that you could convince me that, hey, Carlos, looking at this information, this could sway your opinion about his guilt or innocence? What could you provide or tell us that maybe I hadn't heard previously?
Do you remember in the probable cause affidavit how it says he utilized cellular resources that provide coverage to areas?
Yes.
So it doesn't say that he's near the house. It says that he utilized cellular resources that provide coverage to the house, right?
Correct.
So I'll bring up a little map here. Now, I don't know which
make him bigger
tower he would connect to. It's sharing, so you just have to click on the thing that I'm sharing at the bottom.
Okay, got it.
So there's a couple towers that provide coverage to the house. This being one of them. It's just kind of small. But on this tower, you can connect to it like up in here somewhere. I actually can't even tell where this one, I think it ends in like this area. But that provides coverage to the house. So you could be anywhere within that coverage area and further if they didn't drive test it and connect to services that provide coverage to the house. But that doesn't mean you're near the house at all.
Right.
This tower, which is the one I think will more likely be the one that he connected to. This is the Blaine Tower. It covers all of Moscow, all the way out past Floyd's Cannabis Shop, because Floyd's Cannabis Shop is this building right here.
Okay.
So every time you drive into Moscow from Pullman, you can connect to this tower. And a lot of people go to Moscow from Pullman to go grocery shopping, go to restaurants, things like that. So you could be anywhere up in here, utilize cellular resources that provide coverage to 1122 King Road and not be close to the house.
Right. I think, can I interject at this point?
Of course.
So Kim brought some of this up in some of our previous episodes where the range of some of the towers were I heard anywhere from 15 to 25 miles. It depended on who was talking or what article we were looking at, but they said the range of some of these towers were within the range of his apartment and the site of the crime. Is that fair to say that that was within the range?
I can't find any towers that cover Pullman from Moscow, but technically it could be possible. But like this tower is down in Lewiston, and it actually provides coverage to 1122 King Road. So you could be in Lewiston and technically utilize cellular resources that provide coverage to that house.
And that's where he was seen on one of the, was it a camera?
Yeah, the next day.
Yeah.
The next day he was in Lewiston and Clarkston.
So I know you're going to show and tell more, but at this point, I don't see, me taking Bryan off the list of potential suspects, because if his phone was on and he was in his apartment, it doesn't preclude him from being at the crime scene, and it doesn't say he was at the crime scene. And furthermore, it's just his phone. It's not his person. So he could have left his phone at home on, or at park somewhere on, or anything. His phone doesn't necessarily make it where he's at. So even though it could be compelling that, hey, we're pinging off towers that get him far away from the crime scene or not near the crime scene at a particular time, does not, in my eyes, in any way exclude him from being a suspect, especially when we have other things pointing to him as a suspect. So with that being my crazy thought process, is there any way that you could kind of take me off of that thought and bring it a little closer to, I guess, what the point of the towers are?
Yes. So no one is actually arguing that Bryan, his car, and his phone were not together all night. And according to the probable cause affidavit, they tracked his car and his phone on Stadium Way towards Nevada Street at like 247, right? They have him, his car, his phone on Nevada Street, leaving Nevada Street at like 2:53 in the morning.
You're conceding that point?
It's not a concession at all.
Oh, okay. Because I heard that they don't have his car through license plate identification anywhere.
No, I think they have it in Pullman.
You're talking about at that like 2:47 time?
Yeah, like 2:42, 2:47.
I have that clip, I think. Do you want to play that?
No. My question is later.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm asking is, one of the debates, and the reason I'm asking that question, one of the debates Kim and I had was, why aren't any of these cameras zoomed in enough to show the license plate? So we know for 100% for a fact that that's his car. And we assume, and we shouldn't be assuming, but there's not a lot of true facts out there. We assume they don't have that because they just took the range of white Elantras and just started searching people who had white Elantras in that date range. And that's how they found the car in Washington. And that's how they landed on Kohberger. Wasn't because they had his license plate through some video camera. So there is no true identifying that I know of today that identifies his car out and about 100% that it's his car.
Yeah, you would be correct with that statement, but even Ann says he was out driving that night. They're not denying it.
Well, Ann has to provide, a very strong defense for her client, and Ann will be dependent on her client providing information. So not to say that Anne will do anything nefarious, but Anne is going to give the best possible defense as ordered by law. But, you know, her information is coming from the accused. Not to say that he's guilty, but she's getting her information from the accused, who's like, in my head, thinking, man, I slipped up twice. You know, I turned that stupid phone on when I was going to keep it off, you know, so now they're tracking me a little bit. So I got to say I'm out somewhere. And I thought I wiped that sheath clean, but how did that little bit of DNA get stuck on that button snap? You know, those are the only two mistakes that I made, you know, and I have to talk those away somehow. So as the accused, I'm going to put myself in some park staring at stars. That's, again, my thought process. And I want to.
Why do you think his phone was off? Why do you think his phone was off?
Because they have, and I think it was noted in the PCA that there was a time period where the phone was not, it was either off, not within a tower range, or on airplane mode.
Yeah. Do you know what they based all the cell phone data off of in the probable cause affidavit?
From what I understand, I think there was a AT&T warrant that was issued that they used for his phone.
Yeah, and what they got back was the call detail records.
Yes.
So all they used were AT&T CDRs, which all that shows is a list of phone calls and text messages that have been made and the towers it connects to. So at 2:47, when it says his phone stopped reporting to the network, he either ended a phone call or a text message was sent. In no way, shape, or form does it indicate the phone was turned off or GPS or anything.
So it doesn't indicate that it was turned off, but it doesn't indicate that it stayed on.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Unless there's some other tower that's doing that, right? Because you don't have to be active for your phone to, you know, you don't have to be on a call for your phone to be active or pinging off.
Absolutely.
Towers. There has to be other things for that, right?
Absolutely. But that's why Anne kept saying, I need the cast info. Because what will happen, AT&T pings the cell phone every 15 minutes and gets the timing data, which the timing data is how you see how far the phone is away from the tower. Right?
Gotcha.
So at 2:50 or 2:47 is when the phone stopped reporting to the network, according to Payne. He's on campus for about 6 more minutes. After that, supposedly he would head towards the park, right? Wubblewai Park from the alibi. Depending on how long it takes for him to get down to that road where you lose service, because right down when you head towards the park, you would typically from Pullman, you would go down this road. And then right here, you take a right towards the park and you lose service right in this area. And you don't get service again the whole time you're down there. So he will have, if he went to the park right away, he will have one, at least maybe 2 pings with the timing data showing him moving towards that park.
Right.
And that's that is, part of the information
that Ray information that we're all waiting for, because he did say in the hearing that he had evidence that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah, and when you guys were talking about if the phone was on or like the phone calls and stuff and the further evidence that they need, that's one of the clips that I have, but we did on one of our episodes in the, I don't know, it had to have been the PCA. They talked about, oh no, I can't think of the name of it. Pen and trace?
The pen register?
What is it?
The pen register?
Or yeah, and they called like it pen, trap, and trace or something. Yeah. So I had to look up what that was, and that's where they can see incoming calls and outgoing calls, but not actually what was said or anything like that.
Right.
And isn't that what you were kind of talking about, where I've heard you talk about how you will stop connecting to a tower if a phone call ends or something like that?
So it's not that you stop connecting to the tower. It's just that the call detail records won't show anything. So like if I got a call detail record from somebody from like midnight to noon and they made a phone call from 8 to 9 a.m., that's all it would show was that phone call.
Right.
Oh, right.
So according to Payne, other than 3 to 4, your phone is turned off, which is in like alignment of you shutting your phone off trying to commit crime. That's basically what
Payne
Payne
call
said.
detail record, and that's
Correct.
just like, I just wasn't making phone calls during that time.
Exactly.
Oh
exactly.
my God. See, those are the kinds of things that make me think he's innocent.
And all they could see is the tower that he connects to at the time.
Okay. All right. But that's so give me something that is the opposite of that, though. So what you're saying is,
well, go ahead.
No.
You can't be a police officer saying I arrested somebody on a call detail record that doesn't provide the data you're trying to claim as a police officer, as a law enforcement
Exactly.
officer.
Right. And I don't
He's
think
basically saying because he wasn't using his phone from 2:47 until 4:48 that his phone was turned off or put in airplane mode, which is consistent with criminals trying to stop the police from finding their location in order to commit crime. That's what he's saying, with no evidence to back that up.
And what he's also saying is that Bryan Kohberger, because he put this in the PCA, that the assailant had bushy eyebrows, right? I can't arrest everybody with bushy eyebrows, but I'm going to make the point that this is odd. The phone being off is odd. And the launcher being in the area is odd. The DNA on the sheath is odd. So I'm bringing all these smaller little points in with the fact that, you know, all these things that we're looking at, eyewitness account, phone activity, where is his vehicle, to exonerate him, these little small things that don't necessarily put him at the crime scene don't take him away from the crime scene either. So yes, on that one data point, we could strike a big X through it, just like we're going to strike a big X through the bushy eyebrows. But when you pull them all together, nothing's exonerating him at the time that the PCA was written.
I understand what you're saying, because I went into this thinking this guy was guilty. Mm-hmm. But when you take each one of those things apart and dive into it, like him saying, oh, his phone was off, so he's committing a crime.
No, that's
and
not
then
what
you
they're
look
saying.
into it.
That's not what they're saying. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
you're gonna have to referee Twiz.
Yeah.
Throw it all together.
Yeah. The point I'm trying to make is that piece of that one little data point isn't putting him at the crime scene and calling him guilty. There's a bigger piece of evidence that is kind of doing that. So when we look at these other small pieces of evidence, you know, eyewitness account, I'll say them again, eyewitness account, a like vehicle in the area, and the phone being off, don't exonerate him. It is conveniently that a car just like his is seen in the area. It is, you know, coincidence that the assailant was tall, muscular, and had bushy eyebrows. It is coincidence that his phone, a guy who was saying he's out and about, was not pinging or having any activity during this time. So if there was some activity and it showed him in Wah 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 Park or whatever, great. You know, that's exonerate. It'd be like, hey guys, you know, I'm going to write this PCA, but I'm going to get hammered, you know, because his phone is pinging way over there. There was no evidence that exonerated him from what they had laid out in the PCA. So that's where I need to get up, because this is the only official document I'm working from.
But we have to go one piece at a time.
And I don't disagree that we can tear apart the cell phone thing.
Yes. Okay. So that one, are you?
But I'm not. But you're saying
questioning,
it's exonerating him, and it's not exonerating him at all. It's not even close to an exonerating.
Well, it's not implicating him either.
Agreed. That I agree with 100%. But the point I'm making is the one major piece of evidence that is pointing the crooked little finger at Kohberger is this DNA. And that's going to be the hurdle. But these other things, even though they can be explained away, it hasn't proven his innocence. So these can be disproven, but it doesn't disprove his innocence, because there's no video of him eating an ice cream outside of Wawa Park, at 3 a.m. It doesn't exist.
Well, not that we know this for sure, but according to Andrew Garrett, they have pictures with GPS location embedded into them. He doesn't specifically say that night, but I think he was inferring it.
So GPS meaning like a Waze app or something like that on your phone?
No, like when you take a picture, it embeds the GPS data into the picture.
Yeah.
Oh, so
like
if he took a picture while he was out there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like your longitude and latitude or something like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of points where. So
yeah.
That would be good.
I've heard that before.
It will say that he's in Colton, Washington. And I know this because that's what my GPS says when I'm at Wawa Park.
So I would love to see that. I think that anything that takes him out of that area during the time that the crime was committed, and he can prove that, and Twiz, Kim and I say this all the time. So I have to, this is where we kind of come from, because we've watched true crime for years, right? We've been married 27 years, so we've been doing this for a long time. And we always say, if I was arrested, well, Kim says this, if I was arrested and they were doing that little perp walk, right? And I was completely innocent, she says, I would be screaming at the hilltops, I didn't do this, you got the wrong person. Like, that's what innocence looks like to her, and innocence looks like to me, if I got something, if I'm in jail now, this guy's been in jail, what, a year and a half now, going on 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
2 years of my life is gone because
20 months.
Yeah,
20 months in a week.
Yeah, they got the wrong guy. I would be telling my lawyer every single day, I didn't do this. You guys have taken away 2 years of my life. I can't believe this. Anything that we got to show, I don't care if we get, what's that, contempt of court? We better show something, because I'm not the guy who did this, and this is ridiculous. And you guys have taken 2 years of my life, and I'm going to be screaming from the hilltops. And that's what Kim said before the Kohberger case. Now she's like, his stoic nature seems to be very, good and tame. And I'm like, that's not who we were, who we are.
No, I would be like sneaking onto the internet and like putting out messages.
Yeah, somebody say something.
Well, what's interesting is, I don't know if you guys watched Lana from Truth and Transparency, but she had a document up the other day where Anne was trying to get the cell phone information in February of 2023. They've been trying to get that cell phone information the entire time.
Right. That's what I was going to say. He can't prove it because the prosecution is holding everything hostage. Either they don't have it or they haven't been turning it over. When's the deadline, Twiz? Don't they have like a final deadline coming up?
September 6th, 2 weeks.
September 6th, and then they should start, like, if they don't have everything over, then there should be some, what do they call them?
Sanctions.
Sanctions, yes. Yeah.
After the show, if Carlos promises Go on.
Well, I
on.
was just going to say I want to get back to the cell phone information that you were talking about because you've piqued my interest. But we've had conversations about what's been turned over, what's been said, in court, and what does the prosecution have, what does the investigators have, and in court they're saying, hey, I have turned everything that we have, I have turned over, from the
you watched the Cyray hearing, right? Yeah, they turned everything over that morning.
Yes.
And Mowry had it in his folder the entire time.
Yes. Yep.
That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, we had a debate on one of our shows because I thought I heard him say that he just looked at it that morning. But you thought he
saw it when it came in, but he put it in a different folder and didn't.
Yeah, he didn't know he didn't know how to use it, so he put it in a folder and forgot about it. Is his story.
Yeah.
Which had the timing data. It also had, well, I don't know this for sure because I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming it had the FBI maps and everything. Like it had like a report in there. He just didn't know how to open it.
Right.
So it would show, in my understanding right now, it would show where Bryan was, especially at 448. But Mowry didn't know how to use it. So he just put it in a folder and forgot.
So let's just dissect that for a second.
Yes.
You have a quadruple murder case.
Yes.
You're one of the lead detectives. You're helping in this crime. And you've got the evidence that is going to either prove this guy did it, or I would hope you would want to find out, oh my gosh, no, he didn't. We got to go after the right person. And you just give not two thoughts about it and go, oh, I don't know how to use this. Let me just put it in a folder and I'm not going to look at it for a month.
Without context, that sounds pretty good. But I listened to the hearing and I understood exactly what was going on when he got the information, what he did with it.
Well, that's why I asked you.
Yeah. And then when he got the subpoena, he's like, okay, let me go look for everything, and went to this folder and found it and gave up everything. But yes, he was clear about how he interacted with that document, just like was said, I didn't know what to do with it. Let me put it aside. I got this other warrant that I got to get out and do. So he ran it through the CAS system, right? And he worked on that one. He didn't know how to manipulate the larger file. So he was very clear about what happened when he got the subpoena, that they were going to be in court. He found everything. He didn't hide anything. He didn't, shove it in some corner. He turned everything over that he had. And that's when, they had the conversation. But to your point, I had said at the time, why wait for a subpoena?
Exactly.
Anytime you get something, just hand it over. Just give it to the prosecution. Let the prosecution be responsible for giving it to defense. But as the investigators, don't hold on to anything. When your files are done, make a copy and send it out. Send it over.
So I guess that's my question to you. We're pointing out some things about shady police work, evidence that should be used in certain ways, and they're not doing that. Those little things aren't helping add up in your mind that, like, gosh, why would they do that? Because I always compare this case's police work to other cases, like how police work is done, and this just doesn't. There's just not matching up.
I'll get to that in a minute because it's part of my, closing, I guess.
But, okay.
But I want to turn it back to Twiz. Is there anything else about, for me, that I could look at to say, this is something that I feel strongly could exonerate Kohberger? Because I see the maps that you're doing. I see everything. It doesn't still convince me that he couldn't have been there.
You want to talk DNA?
Ooh.
Yeah, because I think that's the big holdup.
That's my big one. That's the one.
Carlos, do you got a K-bar by chance?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, just imagine you have a K-bar. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And you have like the sheath. You have the sheath and the K-bar.
Yes.
And you're touching it. You have it in your hand.
Yes.
Hand it to Kim.
Okay.
Kim, go stab somebody with it and then leave it at the house.
Okay.
Carlos, your DNA is on that sheath. You weren't in
Yes.
the house. You didn't stab anybody.
Right.
Should we convict you?
Unless I can fully explain convincingly that chain of DNA happened the way you said, unless I can convincingly state that, yeah, I should be convicted. My DNA is there, and they're going to ask.
But you just gave reasonable doubt. I touched the sheath at some point in time. Somebody else brought it into a house, stabbed somebody with it. I was never there. I didn't commit the crime. Is that not reasonable doubt? Because it's just transfer DNA on a movable object.
No, because I can't explain why my DNA is not in the house. You know, I could say, hey, I gave it to Bill, and we got, well, you know what? We don't have Bill's car outside. We don't have Bill's phone over here. We don't have, you know, Bill's 5'1" and has no eyebrows. And, you know, Bill doesn't match everything that you match. So good try, Carlos or Bryan, but, you know.
Where does it say Brian's car's outside of the house?
I think it doesn't say that the car's outside of the house. They see it in the area, and they saw it making a 3-point turn in the area around the time of the crime. I believe the PCA said.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say it's Brian's car.
No, it says a white Elantra.
Right.
Yeah. Again, not a, 69 Camaro red that he doesn't own. It's a white Elantra that he, oh gosh, happens to own. That's where I have the problem. Like, this is the most unluckiest guy in the world that his twin with bushy eyebrows and his build was seen inside of the crime scene, that a car like his was seen outside of the crime scene, and just so happens his DNA happened to be inside of the house. And oh, by the way, there is no traceability of his phone during this time up until this point that we've seen. So that's the most unluckiest guy in the world, or he
is pretty unlucky. Have you ever looked at an infrared camera?
I've seen it on TV.
Can you decipher what color a car is through an infrared camera?
No, I don't think so. I think it all just comes in black and white.
Yeah. How do you know the car's white?
Yeah.
How do you know the car's white?
Well, the only reason I'm saying white was because of the gas station video.
That blurry picture?
Yeah, the blurry picture. But I mean, again, I don't even know that it's white. And I haven't seen all of the video clips that the police have seen. So the only reason we saw the gas station clip is because a citizen released it. I think the only reason we saw other clips was because, the police released still photos, but not necessarily videos to get the public's help to find a white Elantra. They probably looked at 10 other videos that was maybe a little bit more clear and said, okay, this car is white.
I don't think the police have released anything like that. Have they? That they released a stock photo
Yeah.
of a white car.
Yeah.
All the video that has been released to the public has been from people who actually own the cameras
Yeah. So
am I wrong about that?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the police we have 2 pieces of evidence. They have 20 videotapes, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this one's not that blurry. Here, let's look at this, because then they get over 100. Wasn't Ann complaining about all the gigabytes of hundreds of videotapes that she had to look at? Like,
Not relevant ones.
They were gonna have to look through it to find the cars that they were talking about.
right. Because from what I remember, there were like, 10 residents and a bunch of businesses.
We didn't think that was very much
Yeah.
to collect from.
Yeah. But still, during that time frame, if your Ring camera is, or their surveillance video, which businesses might be better because they may run all the time, we turn our sensitivity down on our Ring camera because every car that drove by would turn on.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I guess the only reason I'm saying it's a white Elantra because, the police came out and said we're looking for, a white Elantra, and.
But I think that's the issue. It's everything the police said without really the solid. They're not providing the backup evidence for what they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's really going to be a problem. What's going to happen what if they can prove he wasn't at the house during that time, but then they have his DNA on the knife?
Well,
what's going to happen then?
That's a good point. Let's go back to the DNA because you asked a good question, right? I think there's been a lot to be said about, hey, there is this touch DNA or whatever, the single source DNA. Everybody's naming it something different. But from what I heard, which was second, third hand in the book, they talked about that this DNA came from a fingerprint on the button. Okay. So has the accused told his lawyer to say, hey, I did have a K-bar knife in my hand at one point, and I gave it to Bill, and you need to get all those police folks running after Bill because this is what happened. I haven't heard him say that. I haven't heard Ann allude to that. So even though the theory of touch DNA
I think I have.
Okay. Even though I think the theory of touch DNA is a valid one, this is a fingerprint. And this is, there are ways, because we learned in the O.J. Simpson case, right? There are ways to disprove DNA, and hey, it's possible. But I'm saying what I'm interested to hear, what is his defense to this? And what is Ann willing to say? Hey, he did have a K-bar knife that he did buy on Amazon that, that receipt was for. And yes, he had it. He no longer has it because he gave it to Bill. Or you know what? The middle of the night, a couple nights before the murder, somebody broke into my house and stole my K-bar knife. I'm curious to hear how he's going to say that DNA is mine, but I didn't use that knife that was in that sheath the night of the murder.
Are you aware that it is a partial sample?
I do know that it is not so I don't know. So in technical terms, I don't know what is the best DNA, what is the worst DNA. Some people say single source is supposed to be good. And this is all in all I know is my DNA is not on there because I wasn't there and I didn't touch any knife sheath. I haven't handled the knife.
What if,
it's not
what
mine.
if, as it is a partial sample, they could make it fit your DNA?
Oh, I've never heard of that. I don't know anything about that. I would have to learn.
Yeah, I don't understand all of that either, yeah. Twiz. Do you know about
that? I don't know exactly how many markers they need, but essentially when you're doing like the DNA, like you get the markers, right? The DNA markers that are supposed to be like unique to you, and then they try to match them up, right? But if it's a partial sample, they're not going to have all the markers.
Right.
So depending on how many markers they have, they basically have to fill it in to make a match.
And don't we believe they did fill it in?
Fill it in with what? That's the part I don't understand.
Well, your DNA has like 4 different chemicals they could be, right? It's like 1 out of 4. It's just a sequence of DNA that they get.
Mhm.
like A, B, C, or D, and like there's matching things. So like one marker will either be an A or a B or a C and D type thing. But it's just like the sequence that they look at of those A, B, C, D type things. But if it's not a full profile, how do you ever get a match? How can you say that's Bryan's DNA if you don't have a full sample?
Right. And I think and I don't know the percentiles. I'd be very interested to hear during the trial what they turn out to be. But they will say to the exclusion of, or, by, 100,000 people to one, we can't exclude Bryan Kohberger. Right. And I don't know what those statistics are. So I don't know the level of DNA that they have on him. I just know that it was never disproven, especially when they got the father's DNA and then they got his DNA. It wasn't like it excluded them. And again, he's the most unluckiest person in the world to have a super close match to this person who committed this crime. But, he is, again, the most unluckiest person because there's 5 things that are pointing to him. I need something to point away from him, to say that those things aren't there.
Does the DNA really point to him if it's a partial sample? Because that's not a match.
Yeah.
What if they just filled it in to make it match Bryan?
I don't know. They know that, it was Bryan. I don't know that they were like, unless there's the Patsy theory that I've heard a lot about, which, somebody planted his, again, and if it's 1 in 100,000, I could say, that's a little tight. I don't know. But if it's 1 in 7 million, I don't know. That's, these markers are pretty unique.
What was it? 5 quadrillion or so? What was that number they said?
5.37 octillion.
Oh, octillion. That's what it was. Octillion. But the point is that it wasn't, I don't know how you can call it a DNA sample because it wasn't. It was a piece of DNA, partial. It was just partial. So a part.
It's definitely not a DNA match, and that's what they made it sound like in the PCA. It might be Bryan's DNA. That's the best you could say right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard any of that. Kim hasn't brought a lot of the anti-DNA stuff to me. So anything I'm hearing about DNA is for the first time. The only thing I know about the DNA was that they immediately did the IgG on it. They found, where it could be, this person's or, this person. So they started looking in that area. They ended up going to Pennsylvania. They got the father's DNA.
That's when they made the match.
And that's when they made, the connection of Bryan Kohberger, which also kind of lended itself a little bit to when they busted in and got him. Why is he sorting out his trash and throwing it in the neighbor's bin if he has nothing to do with any of this stuff? Bill
that they have to sort their trash in his neighborhood because they have bears.
He's gonna laugh about that.
Why?
I do think that I do understand that.
Well, then why did the father?
Maybe that was his.
How do we know that? How do we know that he didn't? They just supposedly found Bryan doing it at the time. How do you know that the dad didn't sort the trash? Because we only know that supposedly from when they busted in the house to arrest him. He was awake doing it at the time.
Yeah. No, good point. No, that could be a good point. I just don't know why they saw him dumping the trash in the neighbor's bin. Does the bear not like the neighbor's trash better than the Kohberger?
Well, I think what that is, the thing that makes sense to me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but maybe their bin was full, so they dump it into the neighbors. And supposedly in their HOA, they can't have trash outside of the bin, so it all has to fit. So they probably have agreements with their neighbors to, if they have room, they can put stuff in there, you know?
If it's an HOA, enough said. Like
Well,
those can be crazy. Those
they did
rules.
say it was a gated community.
Yeah.
It is an HOA.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
people that, well, I don't know if you guys know Willie, but
No. I don't
he
think so.
grew up in that area. He's 2 years older than Bryan, but he knows people that live in that neighborhood, and he'll tell you how crazy they are.
I could see that. It doesn't, you know, again, does it exonerate Kohberger? Not by any means. Does it look even more suspicious? Absolutely. I want the opposite. I want him to look way less suspicious and stuff that exonerates him. That's the information I'm looking for. I don't want to say, God, this looks suspicious. Well, you know, yeah, this looks suspicious, but we can talk that away. I want the opposite. I want him to not look suspicious, and I want to hear all the things that pull me off of Kohberger. You know, because it's easy to say, and I agree with you, Twiz, on this one, that, you know, him sorting the trash, the bear thing, you know, we are right next to northwestern Pennsylvania. We're right here on the border. So we know we know all about all that over there. So that makes complete sense to me. But it is just, all that is saying, well, is that something that really, you know, points, you know, should he be pointed as being guilty because of that? Because I can explain it away.
You have a question on
What
this.
points towards Bryan, in your opinion?
What was that again?
Are you just going for the story, like the whole story, or is there certain things that point towards Bryan being the guy?
Yeah, I think there's a big story that is pointing to. I didn't get to see that, by the way.
That's
so if you
okay.
could read it to
We'll
me,
go
that'd be
back.
Awesome. I think there is a big story behind Kohberger. I think there is more than just this guy was plucked out of obscurity and accused of these crimes. Yes, I do think there's a bigger story to it.
I think there's a bigger.
What points him for you? Because you keep saying that things are pointing. I need something that points away from Bryan, but like what points Bryan being the guy for you?
For me, singularly, it was the DNA. Okay, so when they say, and you know, we've watched many cases, right? So, you know, it's always any case, you know, is it the spouse? Is it the last person to see them? You know, or what's the DNA, right? Those are the three initiating factors for me. So in this case, there's no spouse. You know, the last person to see them was each other, you know, and except for this intruder. So for me, it's what's next? It's the DNA. So the DNA starts this whole thing. So give me something that takes Kohberger out, right? Now, if I'm telling you things that make it seem like, wow, he's in, this corroborates, you know, him being involved in some way, then that's concerning, because now we're adding to this foundation, which is the DNA. And for me, it's the eyewitness account, the car, the phone being off, his, I think what he's doing for a living. I think there's, like you mentioned at the top, right? There is some type of obsession with, you know, I think you said serial killers. Maybe he has some type of obsession with, you know, how crimes are solved, right? Or the architecture of a crime. And Kim and I debated this in one of our very first episodes, that you never know what anybody is willing to do. Someone could be completely, you know, innocent and, you know, harmless to society, and somebody could look the part and be a menace to society, i.e. Ted Bundy, right? So we talked about Jeffrey Dahmer. Not that I'm comparing Jeffrey Dahmer to this, but Jeffrey Dahmer said in his documentary, he knew he had this feeling. He had this feeling of something he wanted to do. Kohberger has a feeling that he wants to be involved in this somehow, right? You know, this line of work. Dahmer said, I've always had this feeling. I resisted it until urge met opportunity. And when that happened, he picked up a hitchhiker and committed his first crime. Years later, he turned into, a terrible serial killer, and so be it. But is this an opportunity for Kohberger? Again, take me off him, but why is he so obsessed in this area? Do we
really know that? Do we know he's obsessed?
I think some of the statements from what was the lady who was his mentor, and he was such a great student, and
Ramsland.
She wrote a book.
Yeah, Ramsland.
Yeah,
Catherine Ramsland.
He was really.
She hasn't spoke on him though,
and she won't.
Yeah,
I heard that she told all of his fellow students not to talk to the media either. Like the night that he got arrested.
Oh wow.
And not spoke as in both ways. She won't comment on her thoughts either way. But I do know. Well,
she said he was a good student or something.
Yeah.
So but I guess what I'm asking you, Twiz, is tell me something, because you saying that I believe he's not guilty. I didn't think I heard you say he was innocent, but I did hear you say he was not guilty.
Oh, I think he's 100% innocent if that's what you're looking for.
Oh, okay. Okay. So he is not involved in this any way, shape, or form.
I don't think so. At least the killings themselves. Past that, I mean, he might know people that were involved somehow or something. I don't know.
So that's a tough one. So you also said that I can't put anybody else in the house, right? You don't have a theory of somebody else being in the house?
Not that we know of now, unless it's like the frat kids or, the kids that go to the school.
Okay.
And until they verify what's seen on some of that Linda Lane footage, there are people outside that area during the night.
There's people all over the place.
Right.
In fact, if you go look at that body cam footage when they have the sign guy at the other apartment building, have you guys seen that? It's like the undercover, they're not really undercover, but the police that were from Banfield go to this apartment complex and they find a guy who stole a sign.
Oh, yeah. I call him Christmas Jesus.
Yeah. The cops in that video say that there's kids all over the place that night. So the cops are saying that night wasn't slow or quiet.
Yeah.
And that's on body cam. There's people all over the place.
Yep. And that kid, that was about 4 a.m. maybe?
I think
somewhere
it was
around the time, but he had a lump on his head, and I forgot where I was going with that train of thought.
I do have something pulled up. I don't know if you want to share it. I do have it shared, but this is from Bicca Barlow's declaration. I'm not going to read all of it, but at this point it says, and in this case in which the profile at issue is ambiguous and partial, other suspects are an important area of investigation. So she's saying that the DNA profile for Bryan is partial and ambiguous. And
she's a IgG specialist?
Yeah, she's one of the DNA specialists that they have on Bryan's team. If you look at my picture, you see that little head right to the right of Bryan. That's Bicca Barlow's head.
Okay.
But later on, it has this part. It says, in its motion, the government misstates the statistical rarity of the comparison to the DNA from the sheath at page 6. The STR profile is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be seen if defendant is the source, than if an unrelated individual randomly selected from the general population is the source. This reported statistic for this comparison is a likelihood ratio similar to RMP, which compares two competing hypotheses. The government statement is extremely misleading and is essentially the prosecutor's fallacy. The fallacy is to say the probability is also the probability that the DNA at the crime scene came from someone other than the defendant. It does not say that the odds that the suspect are contributed the evidence are 1,000 to 1. National Research Council, the Evaluation of Forensic DNA Evidence, 1996, at page 133. But she's saying that 5.37 octillion is extremely misleading.
What was that 1 to 1,000? Are they saying that Bryan Kohberger's DNA matched 1 to 1,000 other people?
No, it says it does not say that the odds that the suspect contributed the evidence are 1,000 to 1. It doesn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what she's necessarily referring to.
Yeah, because if that's the number, then there's a high likelihood that could be somebody else's DNA.
To me, all I heard was she's saying they twisted the numbers. They're not representing the numbers correctly.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard of Audrey C. She's like a smaller creator that's gone into the DNA stuff. Her channel is Audrey C's DNA, something. I could pull it up, but
yeah, I'll check that out.
Yesterday, she was playing a video about the prosecutor's fallacy. Now, when I first read this, I thought that's what she was saying about the prosecutor in this case. But the prosecutor's fallacy is like a long time known thing where they use ratios and statistics to say it's more than likely, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually very badly used in criminal cases to make the suspect seem more likely that they're the perpetrator rather than they really are.
Yeah, because again, I don't know the number that 1 to 1,000, even though maybe I'm taking that out of context. That number has to be way higher for me to think that it exclusively could be Bryan Kohberger. So yeah, I'd be very curious to know what that actual number is based on the amount of DNA that they did get from the sheath. But let me go back to you, Twiz, on this, because we're going back to the DNA and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. So I know you mentioned, you gave the scenario, like I had the sheath, I handed it to Kim, Kim went and killed somebody, left the sheath there. How would Ann and how is the defense going to, are they going to admit that he had a knife, do you think? Or are they going to say, it's not my DNA? You can't prove that it's my DNA because the numbers are too low. What do you think? Where do you think they're heading with that? Because if either it's his and it was there and he's got to explain the chain of custody of how it got there, or it's not his and someone planted it, or someone planted it, right? So there's three scenarios. Where do you think the defense is going to fall on this?
I don't know. I mean, we don't really have much information on the DNA because they always seal those hearings. To me, I don't think it will be his DNA. But even if it is his DNA, you can't place him in the house because it's touch DNA on a movable object. I could go up on campus right now with the K-bar, leave it somewhere. Somebody could grab it, stab somebody with it. My DNA is all over it, but I'm not there. How do I commit the crime?
Right. Okay. But in that scenario, you've admitted ownership of the K-bar knife. Sure. And I guess what I'm asking you is, do you think defense is going to be like, yeah, we had a K-bar knife and, he dropped it on campus somewhere, near a frat house and, some guy
Who
took
knows?
it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything showing that he owned a knife. They did a warrant, but warrants don't necessarily mean that you find what you're looking for. It's just you searching.
Right. Yep.
And we didn't see we can't see the returns on those warrants, right? Because they did request, they did request like everybody who in that area who purchased a K-bar knife. Yeah.
And there was some.
We also don't even know if a K-bar was used. We don't even know if the sheath exists, right? We're just told that a K-bar sheath was found, but we don't know if a K-bar was even used in the crime.
Yeah.
Right. And I keep telling you, it's all the suspicious stuff that happens around every single thing. Like, you could bring up any topic in this case, and we could probably point out 5 things
Oh yeah.
that are suspicious about it. And wasn't there, we were talking about the warrant. Wasn't there a warrant from Washington? I just heard this recently on another channel that they were trying that they wanted a warrant because they thought the sheath was going to be in his apartment.
Yeah, there's different filings.
Yeah.
But
Listen.
from Blaker, he has it. I think it's in the PA one too, but it says that they're looking for a knife and a sheath in the
They
warrant.
wrote that.
I could pull it. I could find it if you really want it, but
Well, I'm just pointing out all the great police, like how these things keep bringing up questions. Like, we want to say, oh, there's DNA on the button on the sheath and it's his DNA, but you got one part of the police force saying we found a sheath near their bodies, and then you've got another section of the police saying we're still looking for a sheath. Well, how does that happen?
Yeah, that seems to be.
It's in writing. It's
stuff there, but
that's not. How is that surface level? If
I think it's all surface level saying that Brian's the guy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the only thing in my eyes tying him is the DNA, right? So somehow they got to Brian because Brian wasn't in CODIS,
right.
so we
Neither
didn't
were the other
match-
samples either.
Yeah. So we weren't able to match, these 3 unknown male DNAs to anybody in CODIS.
Right.
So we took the most egregious piece of evidence inside the house and did IgG against it. And that led to Kohberger. That's what led to Kohberger. There wasn't, hey, we have his DNA here on file. Let's make this partial match this full. That's not how that happened.
No, they took a partial DNA
And
and
ran IgG on it.
So
how
what?
do you do that on a not complete DNA sample? Is what I want to know.
Because you have certain markers, right?
But you don't have all of them.
If you had all of them, if you had everything, then and you had it in CODIS, it's a 1-to-1 match. It's perfect. Gosh, this is easy.
Well, I don't understand
there's no
it. I'm just
investigative work that needs to be done here. There was investigative work that needed to be done.
Well, here's the timeline, Carlos. MPD didn't know about Brian until Washington State. I think it was the campus police told them about the white car. So they knew
told him
about Brian.
the car 3 weeks
Nope.
before they even
Nope.
knew.
Nope. Payne says it on the stand. He didn't know who Brian was until December 20th.
see. I told you, December 20th.
Yeah. No,
I thought I was crazy when I heard that.
But they found the white car well before that.
But they didn't communicate
Washington
it.
State did.
Yes.
MPD didn't.
No, yeah, we know that.
And I think the FBI, and I wanted to ask you this too. I think the FBI knew about it. Do you think they knew about it?
When Brian was arrested, I read several articles that you cannot find today that said the FBI was following Brian around Pullman, had eyes on Pullman in early December.
And that's what Bloom says in his book.
Yep.
So why do you think the FBI is not working with MPD? It
I don't
seems
think
like
they
they're
think-
keeping stuff from them.
I don't think they think Brian did it.
So then why do you think they were following him?
To see. They saw the white car. It really depends on when they decided what year the car was too, because on December 7th, MPD did a press conference. They're looking for a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. Now, as far as we know, unless there's some magical footage out there that can show colors at night that we haven't seen or heard about, they're never going to even prove that car is white. Because Linda Lane is infrared. 1112 King Road is infrared. You can't tell what color that car is. It appears white on footage, but you can't prove it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
When did it change to a 14 to 16?
Yeah.
I'm guessing December 20th or later.
Tommy was convinced that, or he said that the FBI was not the one to change that. Do you know if that's like, do we know that for sure, or like who?
Well, according
changed
to
the year of the car?
Payne, he sent it back to the FBI guy, and they changed it to a
Right.
14 to 16 as well. My question is with what footage, because the PCA doesn't say they went back to the original footage around 1122 King Road and changed it to a 14 to 16. They say through various other footages, we changed it to a 14 to 16 or to allow a 14 to 16. But what footage did they do that with?
Okay.
Because if they did it from the footage on WSU campus, you can't say that that car was ever around 1122 King Road, can you?
Somewhat, Heather in the chat. Are you saying, Heather, when they found the white car at WSU, and then they sent out one? They said, "Here's his car. Send it to the FBI." Oh, that's a 2015. That's what
In
they
fact, I will read the PCA, page 7 at the bottom. It says, investigators were given access to footage from Washington State University campus located in Pullman, Washington. A review of that footage indicated that approximately 2:44 on November 13th, a white sedan, which was consistent with the description of the white Elantra known as suspect vehicle 1, was observed on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Southeast Nevada Street at Northeast Stadium Way at approximately 2:53 a.m. A white sedan, which is consistent with the description of a white Elantra known as suspect vehicle 1, was observed traveling southeast on Nevada Street in Pullman, Washington. They say on December 7th that it is a 11 to 13 white Elantra near 1122 King Road. They changed it to fit a 14 to 16 from footage on WSU campus.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, if they're backtracking and finding where is this car coming from or going, and they like, hey, I got better footage over here at this university that is going to have, probably better camera footage. Yeah, I'm going to take that and say, look, not a blurry video. Here you go. Let's use this.
Yeah, but that footage isn't near the house.
Right. So they backtracked. Say they backtracked them to there.
Well, I mean, they have them on camera on WSU campus, but that's not near 1122 King Road. So how do you ever say he's near the house?
Because maybe they followed the car from 4 or whatever in the morning to, back to the college, WSU. Plus, remember, the next day they found out that he showed up at the crime scene.
Nope.
Milled around that area.
Where does it say that? Where does it say that? Show me.
We went through the whole PCA. It doesn't say that in the PCA.
Oh, okay. So it was
never.
Speculated.
Yeah.
It was speculated. No, I think I did see that in the PCA. Do you have the PCA down here? I think I remember them saying.
I do have it. I do have it. I remember
seeing in the PCA that it said
I'll skim and scan.
the next morning that vehicle was in the area, and
I didn't think so,
but I could be wrong, but yeah. I do try to stay with the PCA again. I don't want to speculate like, the kids, the frat boys and stuff like that. I try not to speculate. I try to go with what facts we do have and try to take it from there. But I do remember them saying, I remember them saying that they saw the vehicle the next morning.
I can't ever argue with him because he has a really good memory and I'm always wrong.
They base it off of cell phone data. They don't have the car. I'm trying to find it too.
Okay.
I think that's it. I think it's not. Yeah, I think it's probably.
All right.
That.
But that's why I mentioned that. So it doesn't take too much to say, okay, this car was milling around here during the time of the crime. Same vehicle, make, model, type, daylight now. Also milling around. Hey, can we get some eyes on that? And maybe that's where they got, hey, now that we got better footage, daylight footage. Same thing.
I did find it.
Go ahead.
It is. It says
Page 14.
yes.
Further review.
Further review indicated that the phone utilized cellular resources on November 13th, consistent with that phone leaving the area of the Kohberger residence at approximately 9 a.m. and traveling to Moscow ID. Specifically, the phone utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residents between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. So again, just pinging off the tower. So yes, you're right. It did say that. And then it says the phone utilized cellular resources that are consistent with the phone traveling back to the area of the Kohberger residence at 9:32.
Yeah, that's where I got it from.
Now share my screen.
Yep. Pull him up.
So what if he drives from his apartment, which is over here somewhere?
Yeah, can you put
Down
a red
this road?
I don't know if I can
I
make
can't
it bigger.
He
it's
stops at
smaller.
Floyd's,
Oh, there we go.
is utilizing cell phone coverage that covers 1122 King Road, stops at Floyd's for like 9 minutes and then goes back.
So we're on the
I have that. Can I pull up ours? Like, you want that?
yeah.
What are
Or-
you trying to see, Carlos?
What's that?
What are you trying to see?
Well, I don't know where the house is. I don't know where.
You're talking about 1122 King Road?
Yeah.
1122 King Road is it is right here. They actually removed it from the map, but it would be right here.
Can you pin that somehow?
Not on this.
Oh, okay. Because then I wanted
Yeah.
to see where his residence was compared to that.
That
His
way.
residence is over here.
So all of that is outside of that tower that you're showing, right?
Yeah, this is.
Okay. That makes sense from what you were talking about earlier. I was a little confused. I thought he was within that range of both the tower, his residence, and the crime scene was both within that range, but they're not. Okay, so that makes more sense.
Yeah, his apartment is up here somewhere. I can't remember exactly which building it is. And they don't have the letter.
That makes
right?
more sense. All right, I understand where you're coming from there. All right,
Yeah.
I didn't understand the that little crazy rectangle the blue rectangle you got there.
Yeah, that's just what they show that tower covers.
Okay.
And this is done by people that are, I assume they're paid to go out there and drive test, but this is all like real coverage areas that people have observed on devices.
And is that the thing that Cyray's talking about, Kim? What was that device that he said was portable and they should
The
do
drive, yeah, the drive testing, something like that. Yeah, it does the same thing.
Oh, I count on you for these things.
I don't know. I got it written somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me. Oh boy.
But yeah, that was one of the things coming out of that hearing with Cyray when he had talked about they were going to map the actual route based on what towers were pinging and what towers, more importantly, were not pinging, right?
Right.
That he could probably map a route of Kohberger's travels. And I had told Kim after the hearing, I was like, that I'd be interested in seeing, because whether his phone was off on airplane mode or just not pinging on the right tower, hopefully for Kohberger it's the latter, and someone can come in and show that, hey, the reason they don't show his phone on is because he's pinging way over here in Colorado or something. You know what I mean? I mean, that may be a stretch. But.
Well, the thing is they base it all off the call detail records. So what you're going to have is all the towers that he connected to while making phone calls or text messages. So it wouldn't have like an incorrect ping somewhere, because it would just tell you no matter what tower it was that you connected to.
Okay.
But that's what the MPD based it all off of. So I'll bet you $1 million that the reason why Payne had to have his possible route is because there's a tower that he connected to that covers this part of I-95. So he has to have gone this way according to MPD, right?
towards Moscow?
Well, in the possible route, they say they leaves the house and heads south on 95.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to have him over on this part of the road at some point in time before he cuts over to Uniontown. But again, all they did was base it off of the towers that he connected to. They said, how do you get to where this tower's showing him from 1122 King Road without having any proof that he was at 1122 King Road?
Right.
Where's the 270 split in that, where if he takes a right, he goes to Wawa Park. If he takes a left, he goes to, and is that in that cell tower range as well?
No, all these towers are going to be like the Pullman towers.
Okay.
Oh, here's a question. Oh,
here's Stadium Way. This is Nevada Street. So what they say is that they have him going towards 270 from Nevada Street. They don't say which way he turns here. Now, Blaine, there's 3 cameras on this intersection, and they have him going this way coming home. So we know that night the cameras were working, but they don't say he drove by them to go to Moscow that night. He took a right is what I'm saying. Now, there is a camera on this intersection. Now, it's up in here. I don't think it was there that night, though.
Okay.
But there's a gas station right here. There's businesses right here, so they might have been able to get him.
Big debate too. Did he turn right or did he turn left? And we don't know that yet.
No, but I was looking. There are businesses. If he turned right, there's restaurants and stuff around there. You would think.
The problem is
they didn't ask for it.
Well,
right?
We don't necessarily know if they didn't ask for it. The problem is most companies only will save footage for about 30 days, if that. So by the time they went to go even investigate him, it was 30 days past the crime.
Right.
So you're going to be hard pressed to find footage.
Unless if any of them used anything that went to a cloud somewhere.
Yeah, if they
then you might.
I'm sure there's cameras on this intersection, which is like the main way out of Pullman up that way, unless he took the back street. There's cameras like on all the intersections leaving Pullman. But theoretically, you could have gone up this street and bypassed them to go to the park. I'd have to go drive it again and look for cameras.
Let me rapid fire you a couple other. Oh no, go ahead.
Can you remember that?
Of course.
Because I got to back up just for a second on this. You'll remember?
Of course I will.
Okay. So they said, Twiz, when he's pulling out of his apartment, approaching that 270 split, that within 5 minutes, his phone turned off, right?
No, it's before.
That's what the PCA says.
Yeah, before he leaves. So he comes down Stadium Way, which is weird because they should have him on camera up on here too. But they say if he was at his apartment, they don't even know that because they're basing off of tower coverages. But they say that he goes northeast on Nevada Street at 2:42 a.m. At 2:47 is when his phone stops reporting to the network. And then at 2:53 is when he heads down.
So it's not so at 2:47, he's not so far away that he's in some rural area that his phone's not.
Oh no, his phone
should still be able to ping off something is my question, right?
Yeah, for sure. But again, they base it off the call detail record. So either a phone call was ended at 2:47 or a text message was sent or received.
But that proves our point.
No, it just
it doesn't really prove anything. But what you can say is that for 100% certainty, they can't say his phone was turned off at 2:47.
Exactly. That's all. There's no evidentiary value there. It's just what they're saying is his phone wasn't active during the time of the murders, and it was alluded to that he shut it off to commit a murder. That doesn't necessarily.
That is a crazy statement. He can't say that based off of this information.
Exactly.
That's a crazy statement. And not only that, but he left off several. But there's several more options because he could have just set his phone down in the passenger seat and drove away. He left options off.
Yep.
Right. I was trying to take off the table the fact that he was in some remote area that wouldn't have, it can't be that option because he was still around civilization.
No, this makes sense to the fact that, and you're right, they should have offered a fourth option. But
if not more, there's so many options that could have been.
Don't disagree.
Yeah.
I agree with the fact that they try to soften it a little bit by saying the phone was turned off, it was on airplane mode, or he was out of range.
Which he wasn't out of range either, and they would know that.
Right.
So, and to your point, the fourth option would have been, it's just inactive, right? It's not off. It's just not doing anything right now.
You guys aren't making phone calls or texting anyone right now, right?
Exactly. So it's just
according to Payne, our phones are turned off right now to go commit crime because I'm not calling or texting anyone right now.
Well, I don't believe that. And
that's what he alludes to.
Well, I guess, and I hear what you're saying, but in the PCA, right? And again, I'm just going by memory.
Well, I have
it gives those three options.
Right.
That one was on airplane mode, it was turned off, or it was out of range.
Right.
He did not put in the PCA that it was just dormant or inactive. So yeah, as I may be, if I'm a guilter and I want to be passionate about it, I could say, oh, he turned his phone off because he was committing a crime. I'm not doing that. I'm saying what I also heard or thought I read in the PCA, which was those three options. I give you the fact that there probably should have been a fourth, but I don't know about, oh, he turned his phone off.
They cannot say that.
Yeah. I don't know how you can't prove that either. Yeah.
And again, I will go back to the fact wherever his phone is does not necessarily mean where Bryan is either. So, I mean, if we're going to shed clouds.
Well, if you're going to base it off of the PCA and official information there, Carlos, show me where the prosecution has ever said he was not with his phone and Carl.
No, I'm saying there are, we're trying to shed clouds of doubt, right?
Yeah, I got
so
you.
If I want to shed clouds of doubt, then let's say he's, just because his phone's here, doesn't necessarily mean Bryan's there. Right.
Sure.
Yeah, Carlos made a joke
possible
that he tied it to a turtle in the park.
Yeah, people are trying to say he tied it to a dog. The problem with that is there's not enough drive time to get from the house back to the park and grab his phone. Well, supposedly we don't really know. So it really depends on whether there were text messages made that night or phone calls and how many text messages they were made after 4:48. But when you go down to the park, you're without service the entire time. There's nothing down there. So you'd have to make the drive times line up with the service, and you can't do it.
We did look at that because we looked at how long it would take, and it was pretty long for the time that, hey, if I went here, tried to go back to the, crime scene, do that, and then try to get back, could you do it within the time that
I wanted to see if it was physically possible.
Yeah, we did look at that.
You can do it if you're just basing it off drive time, but what you can't do is if
stop. Yeah.
Yeah, you're dealing with tower, like the cell phone coverage can't be possible. But it also, because they say that they first saw that car at 3:26 a.m., right? Well, if you go to the park at 2:53, you're going to get there right around 3:20. You could drive right up to the gate. That's wide open, by the way. Turn right around, go to the house. You'd get there right around 4:00, but that means those 3:26 drive times isn't his car either. So all of that time they have the car driving around Moscow before 4 is definitely not Bryan's car.
Okay.
Yeah. What is that question?
So I want Carlos.
Sorry.
If your child was in Latah jail, would you still feel the same way? For you? Yeah, like if Bryan was your kid and the evidence is looking like this. Like it's not like solid, boom, 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 boom.
Questioning my child.
Yeah.
I would be in there. I would be.
I'd be on the news doing the opposite.
Yeah, I would be questioning my child, be like, look, they say your DNA's on the sheath. Explain the sheath to me. I want to know. 100%.
Yeah, but Carlos, we already know that they can't say it's his DNA. They could say it might be his DNA.
Right. So
partial
I'm
sample.
I'm going to ask my child, who's in jail, they say that they have your DNA, on this sheet. Explain this sheet. And if they're like, I had nothing to do with it. Okay, I need you screaming from the rooftops like your mother would that you had nothing to do with it. You need to show what we taught you to show when you are in this situation, that no one's going to run over you. No one's going to pin something on you. You are going to stand strong for what you believe in, and what is true, and don't let anybody run roughshod over you. And we will stand 100% behind you. But don't be sitting in here quiet,
Well,
it doesn't matter what he says, though. He could say that he's 100% innocent. They're not going to let him out.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my child.
Well, I know.
I'm not talking about Bryan Kohberger. I'm talking about my child. And what we decided to do with our kids and raising them, and how we expect them to act in a situation like that. First thing we told them, you don't say anything to the police. You get a lawyer. I don't care if you're in Wawa State Park and something happened in Chicago. You get a lawyer first until we come down there and figure out what's going on. So we've already had these conversations.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what he did. That's why I think it's funny. Well, he didn't say he was at Wawa Park until the alibi came out. Well, you don't know that. He could have told MPD before he was even back in Idaho that he was at Wawa Park, and they were like, prove it, because that's what they would say.
Yeah.
Right. And I heard it described too that even in Pennsylvania, I think he went into it being pretty open until he realized, oh, they're looking at me. And that's when he.
Yeah, he had like a 5 to 15 minute conversation with them, according to his attorney there, Labar or whatever his name was.
Yes,
Labar. Jason Labar.
Yeah.
But didn't you also say, and again, this is coming from the other side, I'm not sure, I didn't see it anywhere, but I thought I heard you say that he also asked the police when he was arrested, who else did you arrest in this case?
That's a rumor, I think. Has that been verified?
Not verified. But even if it is, what does it matter? I don't see that pointing towards anything.
Oh, at least a conspiracy.
Maybe. But like, if you're like right now, if you're arrested, Carlos, you're going to be like, did you arrest somebody else to see if there's any other suspects, right? You didn't commit the crime, but it's not pointing to your guilt in any way.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. I think the way the statement was presented to me was, I'm arrested. Who else did you arrest?
That is the way it was presented.
That's the way the statement was presented. So
from the mainstream media.
The opposite to that too, though. Yeah. Wait a minute. I didn't do it. Who else did you arrest? I could see, but that's not how the statement was presented. So.
I also want to say it's easy for me with my personality to be like, I'm going to fly off the handle and scream. But I've heard there's a lot of people on YouTube that have experience, through the law process, and hearing that, I'm like, ooh, yeah, you probably would just talk to your lawyer in private and do what they tell you to do, and I'm also, because of all the weird things going on in this case, I just think that my opinion is, because of what he was studying, I feel like he caught wind of something, and that's where my thought process goes with him. And that's why, if we're going to say that it's not his DNA on the sheath and someone planted it, then that means someone was trying to set him up, correct?
It could mean that, yeah.
So, and then if you're going to say that he's like a patsy, like you were saying, why? Then why? Yeah. There's got to be a reason why. And so then I think that makes a lot of those other theories all fit together with, if it's not him, then who else is it? And then what's the motive? I feel like that all fits together that way.
And let me finish one more, because great points.
Yep.
But let me finish one last point on Heather's comment about our child being in.
Sure. Don't talk about our child, Heather.
No. Just kidding. No, because somebody, people would ask, well, what would you do in that situation?
Right, exactly. I get it. I was just being funny.
I'm trying to be completely honest. I would go in and question my kid. Why are they arresting you?
Yeah.
But here's the telltale sign about all this, in my opinion, knowing us as parents, right? If I went to that jail and I got the answer that I needed to get, I would be on the outside with her.
Yeah.
I with a bullhorn. She doesn't need one. And we would be screaming at the top of our lungs, "You got the wrong guy." Where are his parents?
What if Ann told them not to? What if Ramsland told them not to?
Boom. At day one, where were his parents? Because
they put out the statement right away that they are backing him 100%. And Ramsland also called them the night he was arrested and gave them guidance, whatever that means.
Yeah, I get that, but nobody stifles the queen.
No, I'm with you. I don't necessarily understand why they aren't being more vocal either, but I just don't see how that implicates him at all.
No, there's the implication in my eyes is the DNA, all these things that surround it, the car, the eyebrows, you know.
How tall are you, Kim?
5'3".
And you're 6'6", right, Carlos?
Yes.
All right, Kim. Let's say this, right? According to Dylan, she's about 5'9", 5'10". She saw somebody 5'10" or taller walk by with bushy eyebrows, whatever that means. I don't know what bushy eyebrows mean, so I don't even count that as a description.
Yep.
But would you be able to tell the difference between somebody your height or maybe an inch taller or somebody 5 inches taller than you?
Yeah, if they were close to my height,
it would be hard to decide that, right?
To decide the height,
5 inches
right.
taller than you, you would know.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Brian's is at least 6'2". I'm saying he might be 6'4". He's a tall dude.
Yeah.
So how did Dylan go from 5'9", 5'10" to not being able to decipher somebody that's 6'2", 6'3", possibly 6'4"?
Do you think those are really her words?
I
don't.
I don't know if they are her, but I don't know. The thing is, like, the way that they've lied about the cell phone data, and I've never believed their cell phone stuff because it never made sense to me. Because in the PCA it says utilize cellular resources that provide coverage to an area. I've never said they've been able to place them anywhere, and it turns out that I've been correct the entire time. Now we know what they used, and they didn't necessarily lie, but they were extremely misleading with how they wrote it. Why would I blindly believe anything else that they put in the PCA?
Yeah.
You almost lost me when you said they lied, but misleading, I could
extremely misleading.
Yeah.
They actually do kind of lie because they say pings, but that's just Payne not knowing what the terminology means. They don't have any of his pings. They have cell phone towers that he connected to.
Right.
Yeah, it's like they're using incorrect tools to create. They're
using the tools
creating
incorrectly.
data. Yeah, there
for
we go.
Sure. Because I think what Cy normally does is if he only has CDRs, right, he'll looks at the tower exchanges and then look at the roads and see how they connect.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can be like, well, you transfer from this tower here to this tower here on this road type of thing. So they kind of used it correctly. But what if the towers covers the way that Payne said he went and the way that he actually went?
That's what we're hoping for, right? Again, we have DNA and we have 5 other things, that can be disproven. Right now, it's showing guilt. It's not disproving guilt. But if we can take this, cell phone data or the pinging or the travel or putting him in a certain place, putting his phone in a certain place, and someone can legitimately come up without a counter argument, right? Because everybody has an expert, right? Defense has an expert, prosecution has an expert.
Yeah.
So without a counter, if they can say there is no way in God's green earth that this phone could be here, and the prosecution can't bring on an expert to say there is a way in God's green earth that this phone could be here, without those counter arguments, I say bring it. And if I see it, I'm going for he's innocent. I will be a pro burger. Right now,
I think that's what you're going to see.
I haven't seen it.
I'll show you after this stream, but you have to promise to keep it secret until I can release it publicly.
Oh, yeah. I'm quiet.
Yep. We're good
So
at
you may not
secrets.
be a pro burger at the end of this, but the next time we hear from you, you probably will be when I show you
I would
what
be
I know.
curious to see what you got. But I understand that there's, with this case, and a lot of people talking about it, and, with the gag order, there's a lot of things that, people say, people speculate. Some people have really good information, but are afraid to kind of share that information because, we used to be a secret community before, but now I think law enforcement, prosecution, and defenses are looking at lives and streams just like this to get ideas or information or
For
something
sure.
to put them on the right track. So
For sure.
so I get it. So we are cautious about some of the things that we do say, knowing
Yeah.
that where this case is at, and that we could potentially have a role in this, unbeknownst to us, maybe even unbeknownst to you, that there's somebody in Idaho right now talking about you or watching this anonymously, saying, this guy's interesting. He's got some stuff.
Yeah, we don't. No one wants to interfere with the case.
Right.
I've been keeping this stuff quiet. I've said since probably May 31st that Ann proved his innocence on May 30th, and people just don't know it yet.
Okay. No, I'd be interested. But so let's I got a couple other questions before we wrap up. Is
Sure.
that okay?
Yep.
Right. So yes, to your point, I haven't been swayed yet, but if you got something, it could happen after this, but it may not happen during this during this discussion.
All right, Carlos, we know the DNA, it's not necessarily his, right?
Not right.
How's that not right? They have a partial sample. They can't say it's his.
So I guess I need to see all of that documentation to understand that if it doesn't exclude him, it does include him
as a possibility. I could kind of see that.
Yeah.
That's not but see, when you say that, you're not innocent until proven guilty, because that doesn't say that he did it, but you're leaning on the it means he did it side.
I'm leaning on this is the guy we need to investigate and bring him to trial.
Sure.
And let him disprove that
he doesn't have to. The state has to prove it's him.
Yeah, they have to prove it's him.
Yeah. So if this is the evidence we got, and it seems all circumstantial, and we've had gazillion circumstantial cases in the United States of America, and he can't, explain why his car was there, his eyebrows were there, his DNA was there, and his phone wasn't active during that time, and he was doing kind of suspicious stuff during, and he was maybe, now let's get into speculation, maybe following these people, because I think one of the family members said that there was a social media connection.
Oh yeah. That's
I
from the
mean,
Garrett discovery, and that's, as far as we know, when they released Bryan Kohberger's name, some guys, they'll know it in the chat, I can remember this dude's name, but he changed his profile to Bryan Kohberger's name, and he had already followed the victims before. But that's not been proven that he did follow them. But the judge and the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, have both said that there was no social media connection and there was no stalking.
Yes, they did say that.
Yep. And I think one of the family members said before it was made public, they got the name and they looked before anybody in the general public.
Christy said that.
All right.
Yeah.
They got his name hours beforehand, but they've also said they can't find a connection either. So,
okay. But I'm just saying that, so if I'm looking at, and again, Kim and I were talking about this in a previous episode that, why did the FBI follow him across country? Why didn't they arrest him? Why did they have eyes on him? They weren't 100% sure. There were 4 people who lost their lives in a pretty horrific way. And sure. I think there are people in the great Northwest there that were like, hey, is there a serial killer out here? Because this has Ted Bundy vibes, and I'm a little nervous. And my kids are now home back in the Midwest because something's crazy happening out there. You guys need to do something. And I hate that an innocent person could be caught up in this net. But if I got 5 or 6 things pointing at this person, I need to write the PCA, get eyes on them, and get them in custody. And he's had a year and a half to present something to say, you got the wrong guy and it hasn't happened yet. So that's scaring me a little bit more.
That's kind of fair, but she was also asking for the cell phone data and didn't get it until the 30th of May.
And that's fair. 30th of May. It is almost the 30th of August. June, July, August. Ray got to do some work in 3 months, or if we had a speedy trial, they would have never proved innocence.
That's not true. They wouldn't have had anything to prove that he was guilty. But I mean, that there is some weird stuff if you want to talk about the preliminary hearing and how they did the grand jury indictment instead.
Kim brought me up to speed on that.
That drove me crazy from the moment it happened.
She hated that. But remember, we're at this point, it is in a jury's hands. And as a potential juror, not out there, but here's what I'm looking for as a potential juror. Do you have DNA? Is there some type of motive, even though you don't have to prove motive, and what evidence can you show me that he had nothing to do with this? As a juror, I've been on juries. She's been on juries. And if everything's pointing in this direction, a regular person, John Doe, Carlos, Kim, is in charge of his life.
Right.
And we don't have, as jurors, we don't have the sophistication that the prosecution and defense do. You're going to tell me some things in layman's terms, and I'm going to make a decision. And him leaving that up to that, that's why I'd be pushing now everything in my power. Again, me with the bullhorn, my wife just screaming it from the hilltops. I'm not leaving it up to John Doe. That's just me.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think Anne is a extremely smart attorney. And I think they're waiting until the prosecution's deadline to hand over the evidence, and then you're going to start seeing bombs drop. We're going to start seeing nukes. You're going to start seeing the Frank's hearings, the suppression hearings, all that stuff. It's going to start dropping. And I'll tell you right now, even if Bryan did do it, they can get that arrest warrant thrown out, and he's going to go free no matter what.
I've been hearing a lot about Frank's recently. Yes.
Now, is that related?
They lied in the PCA.
Yep. I've been on a grand jury, and I know how manipulative they could be. I could just sense it. Like, they come in, they're all in charge. They just boom, 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 boom. It's like they're telling you what I could just tell. I can just read through it. Like, they're telling you what they want you to know. And I mean,
the defense doesn't get to combat it. You're just taking the prosecution's word. It's crazy.
Right. And you've got typical citizens sitting there. If you're brave enough to even ask them a question, they're just going to talk all jargon stuff. And it's very confusing. Yeah. They're no joke. The prosecution's got full control over that situation. They went in there and did what they wanted to do.
Exactly. And there were 5 jurors who said, show us more evidence, please. And Bill Thompson said, nope. All you need is probable cause, which you can indict a ham sandwich with probable cause. It's crazy.
Okay. This was
I still can't believe you're saying it's his car, Carlos.
Well, nobody has shown me it's somebody else's car. Just give me.
They shouldn't have to. They got to show you it's him.
Well, but if you're saying it's not Kohberger, right? Then the him doesn't matter. Tell me the car that was lurking around there and doing the 3-point turn and going behind the building. Tell me whose car that was. So forget
You shouldn't
that
have
someone's
to, though.
arrested. Just tell me whose car that was.
I don't know.
That's what I'm
Not
saying.
Brian's. If it's
People are
11 to
trying.
13, here's the thing: is the FBI said that the car around 1122 King Road is an 11 to 13 originally. That's what the FBI said.
I think that's disputed.
Wait,
Because-
2011 to 2013? Disputed. Okay. I didn't hear that part. I just wanted to clarify.
So the FBI, according to the Bloom book, the FBI always had the further range. They initially, you're going to doubt me.
Oh, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. Go on.
Yeah. So
Not that I put any weight on his words, but go on.
yeah. So the FBI had the longer range. They initially said it looks like this, and that's what Moscow ran with. But they had never come to a conclusive because they didn't have the right documentation.
So either the footage is bad, blurry.
Yep.
Have you looked at the differences between the two?
Yeah, we did an episode on
Yeah,
it.
we did a whole episode on it, and we actually pulled up 2011, 2013, 2014 Elantras, and they.
I got it
them.
sharing right now.
Oh, good.
I think you can tell differences.
What
But
I
it literally says in the PCA that they changed the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I just don't understand how they can't get the back bumper.
Well,
see if I
apparently
can
they
zoom
have
in.
no pictures of the back bumper, or they'd have the license plate.
Well, the infrared, it'll like white out the license plate because the license plate is reflective. But you see at the bottom this black bar.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be able to tell that, especially on a light colored or white car on infrared, you'd be able to see that part stick out. So if they have, look at even the side view, like a 45-degree angle, you'd easily be able to tell it apart
It's
from
the
either
view.
one of these two angles. Not only that, but this
The view above that is the
reflector.
one we were looking at, because that would be the one above those two. Was
Yeah.
the one we were looking at, because that's what you would see on a camera.
Right. You should be able to see the back of that car on a camera. Definitely the 1112. You should be able to see this part of the car.
Yeah.
They'd
The one
easily
above.
be able to tell that black part out if it was on that car. So either the footage is terrible or I don't know. I don't know how you could ever explain that part away. But you sure as hell can't say, well, maybe it's that car from WSU.
No, I'm looking at the ones above that one. Is the ones
Oh, up here?
Yeah, that's what we were looking at.
Yeah, I mean, this one's a little difficult.
Yeah.
You can tell a little bit with like the headlights are a little different, like they're darker. You get this part is a little different. But what I'm saying, especially on infrared, because you get that especially like the contrast between light and dark, that black bottom part on the 14 to 16 would stick out like a sore thumb. There's no way that I would
if
believe they messed
had
that
the
up.
license plate, though.
You don't need the license plate. You just have to see that black bar. They don't need a license plate. You can tell this black bar.
But if you were able to see that black bar, then they would have a license plate.
Well,
That's I think what
just because they can't read it doesn't mean they didn't see it.
Yeah.
If you look at the infrared, when look up on the Linda Lane footage, you can see those cars drive by. You can't read any of their license plates, but you can see it because the light reflects off of it. It just lights up.
Yeah, the side views we looked at, I told Kim, I was, because she was, pretty adamant about how could it go from 13 to 15 to just fit Kohberger. And I'm like, because the cars look the same.
But I don't think 2011 looks anything like a 2015. I thought the 2011's more smooth on the sides, on the door panels.
Yeah,
I thought
It's hard to tell on these pictures too.
Yeah.
But the side profile is pretty similar. I don't think it would show up that the lights are a little darker. I think that'd be really hard to see on infrared. But the back, I don't understand how you could ever mix that up. You'd see the black piece of the bumper stick out. The reflectors on this one are kind of like below the crease, so they're angled downwards, while these ones are more perpendicular and they're further apart. Like, I don't understand how you could ever mix up the back of these cars. And on that 1122 King Road camera, you're seeing that car drive away from the house, if that's the camera that they're using, which is what we assume. But they have the camera footage of the car leaving the neighborhood. You're seeing the back of that car at some point in time.
Especially if you're an FBI agent who's in charge of identifying cars. Like, that's
For
your
sure. FBI, if you need a new car identifier guy, hit me up.
Yeah, there shouldn't have been, to your guys' point, there shouldn't have been this level of confusion or misinformation given specifically to the public. They went out and said, public, we need your help in finding this car. And they went out there with supposedly the wrong information. And if it was the right information, then hey, stick to the story and exonerate Kohberger.
Yeah.
Because if the car you're seeing on video has a distinct difference and it can't be Kohberger's car, then show that and say these video clips should not be part of evidence because it doesn't have the black bar on the back.
For
and
sure.
I know Ann Taylor's going to be like, hey, that doesn't have a black bar. That's not Kohberger's car. Kick it out. Kick it out. Kick it out.
when she finally gets all that.
Yeah. So
I think she has all the footage now. I mean, It's hard to say with what Payne said, but she asked point blank, like, so there's no footage of the car? And he said, not that he's aware of. And the prosecution didn't clarify that.
Yep.
Because right before that, they were talking about heading south on 95 out of Moscow, but her question doesn't bring that up. And he answered it. Prosecution didn't clarify, which they should have if they were really like, well, he's just talking about south of Moscow. They didn't say that.
Agreed.
All right. Well, I'm unfortunately still in the same spot. Although I did learn a few other things.
You're a little closer.
You
can be honest. You're a little closer.
I'm closer. There was I think to your point, I think the biggest thing we talked about tonight for me was how shaky is the DNA going to be? It's easy to throw away the car. It's easy to throw away the phone. It's easy to throw away the eyebrows. It's easy to throw, the sorting of the trash. It's easy to throw that stuff away. I really want to see how they're going to attack the DNA evidence, right? And I think that's the important piece here for me. And the more I hear about that, and the more that, I don't feel 100% confident in that, the more I could say, hey, this is the most unluckiest guy in the world.
She's going to try to get that thrown out, I'm sure.
Well,
the DNA?
The buccal swab's gone. You might as well just assume that that's gone. Because they got that after the arrest.
So, and we say this a lot too, two things can be true. Kohberger could be not guilty, but maybe not innocent.
True.
So, I think there's a lot of, I think a lot of the things that I hear, that I used to hear on some podcasts, not anybody here, but, just, the police are stupid. And because they're stupid, no one should ever be convicted, and I'm like, hey, there's families of victims here that need closure and need to know that whoever did this to their child, is paying the price. And, just because we don't like Corporal Payne doesn't mean that someone should walk out the door because Corporal Payne is an idiot or a buffoon, which I hear on some podcasts. Sure. No. As a father, I'd be like, I don't care how much of a buffoon this guy was or is. If this guy did it, he needs to pay for it,
Right. But that name calling comes from people fearing that a guilty person could walk because of bad police work. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants someone who
Which
really
could easily happen in that case if Bryan did it.
Yeah. That's tragic. That would, I mean, besides the crime.
What
that's
about
tragic.
just executing the person you have locked up because that's who you have locked up?
Right, exactly. It works both ways, you know. And I think all of that needs to be, you know, vetted and understood. But because, you know, I am a distance away from it, I'm not in it. You know, I can't say with some level of certainty, and I've been careful to, you know, say what I think is speculation and then what, you know, people have written down as, you know, fact in a court of law, right? That's the only thing we have to hold our society together, you know, are things like this, you know, and, you know, I'm going to have to lean on that until someone can prove it otherwise. And, you know, that's just how I feel. I think, you know, we have to have some level of, you know, not everybody is involved in a conspiracy, you know.
You know me, I just watch people all over this app that they get they get documents, they get body cam footage, they get evidence. They get evidence that we're not being allowed to see otherwise. So they're not just throwing out crazy ideas with now some people do. But
well, that's what I'm talking about.
That's not who I listen to.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on. And the funny thing is now all the guilters are the ones starting up with the crazy conspiracy theories.
Such as?
Bundy went to WSU to kill some chick, dropped her body in Wubbleby Park, and that's why Bryan went there. Bryan broke into the chemical lab and stole chemicals.
Oh, was that the bomb theory? I did hear something about
the bomb. It's like similar but different. The bomb theory too.
Okay.
Is he supposed to be emulating somebody with that?
I don't know.
I don't.
I think the Unabomber.
Yeah,
I think
I think
saying that Bryan was making a bomb is about the stupidest thing you could say.
Yeah. No, I don't believe. And I'm not part of the only community I'm a part of is Kim. And Kim's part of the Kohberger community, so I just happen to listen in. So you know, this is where we debate offline, and we decided, hey, let's just do that online. So
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on, Twiz. This was very informative for me. It was a great discussion. You brought a lot of good information. I'm closer.
We'll do it again in a few weeks, maybe.
Okay.
When the DNA gets tossed, we're gonna have to have round 2.
For sure.
Oh, yes, we will.
That would be a big one.
Yes, we will. You're gonna have to fill me in too because I have to work when they have the trial. I'm so mad.
No, just call in. You guys can come to the hearing with me. It'll be fun.
Well, we talked about it, especially in the summer. She's a teacher, so she's off in the summer.
Yeah.
We might go to
if it goes to trial.
Yeah.
I put about a 1% chance this goes to trial.
I might agree. So I just thought it'd be sooner, but maybe this holding of evidence is maybe stopping all that. So I'm keeping my eye open to that. So
it definitely pushed it back for the defensive side. But the thing is, with it being a death penalty case, they have so much extra work that they have to do, and they have to do it even if they don't think that it is going to go to trial. So
yeah,
I think if any of us, even
love talking to you,
even if we committed the crime, we'd be lucky to have Anne defend us, you know?
Oh, sure. And to have a public defender, like public, she's the public defender, not, that's amazing. Okay. So we're going to wrap this up, and I want to thank everybody in chat for joining us tonight. I have been watching. It's easier with 2 people, 2 hosts, so I can kind of check the chat and see what's going on. You guys are having great discussions. We appreciate you all. Please make sure you hit the like button if you haven't, and subscribe if you'd like on your way out. And we will see you next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Right. Good night, chat.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Happen. This person was so bad.
Dangerous times, don't fly too high.
Saw a little bit of their.
Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world and keep the sky on your mind.
As always, everything we discuss is for entertainment and is speculation. Please like and subscribe, and definitely join our discussion in the comments. If you're ready